Hey guys, back with another video today. We have Vincent from Card Hour, and we have our first very special guest. We have Danny from Logical Soccer Card Investing. Welcome on, man. It's good to have you here.
What's up? I'm super excited to be on the show. I've been watching your stuff for some time, and same thing with Vincent and Mr. Cardauer himself. So I'm excited to just be here and talk with you guys about football.
Yeah, we got two legends in here. If anyone hasn't listened, Danny has his own podcast, I believe, Logical Soccer Card
Mhm.
Investing. Looked up on Spotify. Listen to your stuff. Really like some of the insight you have. So just thought, we'll have you on the show. It'll be great to hear what you have to think about what's going on. But we'll start off right away with maybe some of the most interesting news going on in the soccer world just in general right now. Manchester United at the top of the table.
Yeah, that's something I don't think a lot of people would have said like 3, 4 weeks ago. Um, they've been on a good spree right now. I just hope for the fans that they can keep up. Um, they only lost 3 games this season, which is insane. Because people always criticize their defense and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, kudos to them. On top of the league, I'm just curious how long it's gonna last. That's always the main thing, right? With the Premier League, things can change so fast, and some teams like Aston Villa has only 15 games, so they are 2 games behind. So it's just all over the place a bit. But I kind of like them being on top. It just gives another dimension to the race,
You
I would
seem very
say.
optimistic about it. Are you like emptying your bank account right now and just buying up all the Manchester United players, or what are you doing with
Not with
Shh,
that jersey in the background.
that?
don't say that. Don't say that.
Whoa,
No,
I didn't even see that. Dang. There you go. That
yeah,
tweets
man.
out.
Yeah. No, I just when I start watching football, soccer, or however you're gonna call it, I always follow David Beckham. That was my player. Wherever he went, I went, and obviously he became David Beckham at Manchester United. So I used to root for Manchester United when I was a kid, like Giggs, Scholes, those type of players. All in one team was just amazing. And they got just a drop off, and I was a bit sad to see them being in that spot. So I'm glad just for the team and for the legacy and for the history behind the team that they are back at the first spot, even though it's maybe only one week. But yeah,
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Troy, but like I know with me growing up in the States, it was like um the a lot of the only soccer games that you would find on TV were basically Manchester United games. Like I know for me, like growing up in New York, I think Manchester United had a deal with the Yes Network, so the same network that played like the Yankees games. So essentially, like a lot of the soccer you would watch growing up were just Manchester United. So I grew up as well, watching David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, because at the time, they had some stuff in the Champions League, but as far as domestic leagues go, the only thing you could find was Manchester United. So I feel like in the States it has kind of an allure to it, and so I think maybe some of their success is kind of magnified within the hobby, and I think it's just in soccer in general. Like whenever you say the name Manchester United, people kind of get excited. I mean, whether it's worth getting excited about or not doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, especially in America, Manchester United was a big deal, especially when I was growing up. I'm not going to expose everyone's age, I don't know, but Manchester United was special. And you mentioned Beckham, you mentioned Ronaldo. Pretty much any player who went there, they had like a special shine to them, even if they were just. This is a super throwback, but we talked about it, I think, a couple podcasts ago. I was like, Park Ji-sung, he was a bench player basically, but in my eyes, in a lot of the world's eyes, he was a star just
yep.
because he was on Manchester United. Like the fact there was plenty of other, well, not plenty, but there's other players who were, starters for different successful clubs, but he got so much more attention just because he was a sub at Manchester United. But I
Mm.
will disagree with you a little bit. I think that shine really went the opposite direction. I mean, everyone knows Manchester United struggled recently, but we talked about it even before the season. Is it like, are the players just not good enough? Like the players they have now, we were questioning the whole squad. I mean, you have, this is obviously before, but Di Maria, DePay, all these type of guys. It was like, is it a coaching problem? Is it a culture problem? Or
Yeah.
do they just not have the ability in the squad? But I think now we're seeing, Fernandez, Rashford, they have enough. They have enough to be successful, and it's going to be tough for them for sure in the league. But I feel bad for even questioning the squad at this point because they've showed how much talent they have.
Yeah, fair enough. I would say they also have their fair share of luck and penalties, but I mean, yeah. I mean, if you're on top of the league after 17 weeks, then I don't really think you can question it. I can just question the team. I mean, even though I feel like 36 points is not that much to be on top of the league after 17 weeks, well, it's enough. If other teams struggle, like Chelsea 9th, Arsenal 11th, Wolves 14th, I mean, that says enough, man. I mean, the league this season is not nearly as strong, I feel like, compared to last season.
Yeah,
or it's just my perception on things, or is maybe it's wrong. But I feel like, I mean, Leicester 4th, Everton 5th, Southampton 7th. Those are teams, like, especially Southampton, normally they're like 11th, 12th, 13th, whole season long. Like, that would be a good season if they finish like 10th, 11th. Now they're like 7th, Aston Villa 8th. Like, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Regarding Manchester United, what scares me about them is that I feel like they're pretty inconsistent. So some days they'll play lights out fantastic, and some games they just look poor. So I don't know. I mean, I'll buy their cards. I'll buy their players' cards for sure, because I think they're kind of like, so I'm also a New York Knicks fan. And whenever we feel like there's any sort of glimmer of hope, we start like just going toward it for our lives. You know, when Porzingis was there, it was all about Porzingis. Oh my gosh, we had to get those Porzingis cards. It was so much hype surrounding that. Same thing with like RJ Barrett, you know, and I think actually RJ Barrett has some good things going for him, but it's just like a glimmer of hope. You start jumping on top of it. I think it's, you know, and I think Manchester United, obviously they're at least respectable and they're doing well within league standing. So that's good. But I think that any success they have is kind of amplified because people want them to be successful. So I think people are willing to kind of jump all over that, just like prospecting, like American prospects or English prospects. At the slightest glimmer of success, people jump on it because they want it to be successful. So I think the market kind of reflects that as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Across basketball and soccer, a point I always make is don't fight the hype, like embrace it, know it's coming, and utilize it. I mean, RJ Barrett, I'm still a believer in, not to turn this into the basketball card podcast, but
that's good.
You were right. It's a little bit sad, actually. I hate to put this on your city, but they will cling to whatever hope they can get. Like the littlest bit of success, everyone is all in.
It's so sad. It's sad to think like my best basketball memories are from like 1994 when the OJ Simpson trial was going on, and when the Knicks almost had it locked up, and then Charles Smith can't make a layup, neither can Patrick Ewing. They lose in Game 7. You know, that's like the highlight of my basketball like realm, and that was almost 30 years ago. So I mean, I don't know what that says.
Yeah, that's the tough thing too about New York is the hope as well, because there's some other teams and cities that have really struggled. Like, I mean, even just, I guess Cleveland's a little different because they had LeBron, but most of the other cities don't hope as much as you guys. You don't see the Kevin Durant. I mean, they had Kevin Durant, Kyrie, Zion Photoshop. I mean, that's kind of a deserved meme at this point. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, you know, the odds, even though Manchester United is top of the table, I think the odds makers would agree with probably all of us here that even at this point, they're not the favorite. There's some other strong sides. And speaking of other strong sides, across the city, Manchester City, we have my boy Phil Foden coming in with a great goal today. The hype is building. I was actually talking to Card Hour about this a little bit before. I saw so many tweets and stuff on Instagram. It was like, he's a future Ballon d'Or winner. He's going to be the same level as Mbappe and Haaland in a year. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I like this guy. I have more Phil Foden optic cards than I think literally anyone in the world. But really? even me, I don't know about that one. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Sure. I think Phil. Go ahead.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
So me personally, I think Phil Foden's a stud. I take my soccer football evaluation with a grain of salt. Obviously, I'm not a professional. There's people that know a lot more than I do, but like there's certain people I trust, and I trust Pep Guardiola. When Pep Guardiola says stuff like, I don't know what he was smoking that day, but in an interview he said that Phil Foden was the most talented young player he'd ever coached. And I just want to say, Pep, you coach Lionel Messi. Like I want to just say, I want to jump through the screen and say, hey man, do you know who you exactly coach? But yeah, so he goes in, but I don't know, like you can only take that so far too. But it's like if you believe in him that much, why aren't you playing him all the time? Why isn't he getting more playing time? So it was interesting today for him going in instead of Raheem Sterling starting the game, which I thought was interesting. And I like him playing. I generally like him playing up front too, more so than I like him playing in the midfield. And I don't know, he just has like a little magic. He has a little different quality than I feel like some of those other British players do. Like just his creativity, what he does off of the ball, what he does on the ball, the types of runs that he makes, the passes that he does, and he has a special touch too that I'm not seeing from a lot of other players in the English national team. I think he's box office, honestly. I think that he's the type of guy, he'll put up numbers, but also you just like watching him play. And I think that's an element that people have to take into consideration too, especially when you're thinking about cards. Like it has to be a fun player to watch. Like there are certain players that are amazing, but people are not going to buy their cards. Like Thomas Müller, you know. Thomas Müller is arguably one of the greatest, one of the greatest forwards in my book ever, because he's brilliant at moving apart from the ball. He's always going into the right place at the right time. And he made his career doing that. That's his career. And he's like the best ever that has ever done that, like going into space and finding spots. But he's not like taking out teams by himself, because that's not the game. That's not the game he plays, and that's not what he's successful with. So, and I think people, as as investors, as collectors, we kind of want to see players that, like kind of like the N1 mixtape of soccer, if you understand that analogy. We want to see people crossing people up. We want to see Neymar's, we want to see the skill, the trickery. We're not wanting to see a player like Thomas Müller do what he does extremely well, even though he's putting up stats. I mean, epic stats, stats that have never been done before. He's doing it. So to Phil Foden's credit, I feel like he has more of that element to him. He has that little bit of swagger that makes people excited.
Yeah, I think that's a very good explanation. And it's just also understanding the player in the team. I keep repeating it, but as you say, I think he's better more going forward than playing in that midfield. I mean, they have Kevin De Bruyne there. He's also an attacking midfielder, but I like Foden more up front. So for me, he's just another kid on the block. To be honest, I don't think he's the next this of the next stat. He's just Phil Foden in Manchester City right now. And obviously, yeah, he got a lot of hype because of what Pep said, but I mean, is he going to break down an 18-year-old kid that wants to be in the first team of City? I don't think so. Of course, he's going to say good things about him. And as you said, that was the first thing that came into my mind. Like, do you realize what kind of players you coached in your career? Like, really? I do think that people put too much weight on what he said back then. I mean, the fact that people still bring it up. I mean, coaches say stuff like that every time, like every game, every season about players. And people always pick on that from Foden. So I think people put too much weight on it. Maybe, I don't know. That's my perception. I do think Foden is very good, but he's still very young. It's still very early. But he's in a very good spot at City. I mean, how many youngsters can say they're playing for Manchester City?
I mean, good and bad, right? So he's not. Yeah. So it's good in that he's like, imagine being under the tutelage of Kevin. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I say this right, because the other yesterday I was told that I was saying it wrong my whole entire life, so I got to make sure I do it right. It's not Kevin De Bruyne. For all you Americans out there, stop saying Kevin De Bruyne. It's Kevin De Bruyne. Did I say right, or is it right?
I'm not kidding. I'm not doing that.
Done. Kevin De Bruyne.
Nailed it.
I've been working.
Who's the real Belgian here? Yeah, no, but for sure, I mean, you both had great points. I will say, I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit with basketball and soccer, so I apologize. But I think the most important thing is Phil Foden definitely has it. And when I invest in anything, they kind of have to have that, because especially with people's attention spans and how the hobbies works, they need to be exciting. They need to be captivating. So someone in basketball, and people are so tired of me bashing on specific players, but like Rui Hachimura, great player. I think he'll be a solid part of the rotation, but he's not the most exciting. Yes, he has like kind of like the Asian factor and all that stuff, but I don't think we're ever going to live in a world where people are tuning in to see Roy Hachimura drop 30 points. I just don't think that's where we're going. And the same thing in soccer. I'll admit to not knowing the most about this guy, and he very well could be a good investment. All these guys can be good investments, especially in short pockets. But so when like, Chiesa, Juventus, or some of these other guys, it's like, is he ever going to be a world-class player? No, probably not. So I just wouldn't put my money there. In terms of Foden, I may be putting myself a little bit of a limb here, but I think he has potential to be special. But as Cardauer kind of pointed out too, it's potential at this point. I think the other different thing to take it back from basketball and soccer again is soccer's tough, because especially with these attacking players, I think we see a bunch of people come through and have success for, Barcelona, Manchester United, some of the top clubs in the world. It's rare in basketball outside of an injury that you see someone starting for the Lakers as a rookie and then they just kind of fade and then, are out of the league or something like that. Where in soccer, we see it all the time. We see guys come in, scoring goals, making assists, starting matches, and then they're not even top division players by the end of their career. So that's something I'm always worried about, and is at least in the back of my mind with someone like Foden. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's something to consider at least.
Yeah, it's just because they put these youngsters at such an early age at such a pedestal. It's hard to keep up, if you have to compete against players like Messi, Ronaldo, because they're still playing, like people compare youngsters so fast to these guys. Try to score like 35, 40 goals a season for 15 years. Like no one's going to do that. So, it's part of the hobby. It's part of the hype. It's part of the game. People just need to realize that like only like 3% of the whole academy makes it into the first team, and even less make it into a very good career. Because what does that mean, a very good career? Like Messi, Ronaldo are not very good. Like it's something different. Like you just leave them out of the question. Having a good career is Lewandowski level. That's having a very, very good career. And even that, 95% of the people playing right now is not going to make that. Like, no way 95% of all the players right now is having a career in goal scoring, in achievements, in awards as Lewandowski. And no one is talking about Lewandowski. So
there's like five that could do that. Literally five. That's it.
people were so surprised when the Champions League was happening about Kane and Lewandowski's like, wow, this guy scores like 5 goals in 4 games. Wow. It's like, yeah, he's been doing that for the last 10 years. So that's it's just funny, but you need to put everything or keep everything in perspective that it's just so early for these guys. Even a guy like Dele Alli, all he needs is one good loan out of Tottenham, and he's again the next big thing. Like everyone was telling he was. Like he's only 24. Like, what's 24? Nothing. If he goes out to have a career like Ronaldo, that's 35. So it's a long way, and it's all. I get it. It's a part of the hobby. Like they're speculating and prospecting. I get it. It's fun, but people need to be very careful.
And I think it's 2 separate things, right? So there's measuring someone's potential to be a good soccer player, and there's also playing the market. And those are kind of different things too, because there's some players that, do I necessarily believe in them? Not really, but I believe in the market, and I believe there'll be a demand for a certain player in the market. So Phil Foden's a guy I think there's going to be a demand for, just because he's kind of like the local kid growing up in a system, getting onto the first team, having success. It's a good story. Will he be a transcendent player? I have no stinking clue. There's so many different variables, like beyond, like forget even the skill part. We're talking just, can you stay healthy? Period. Can you stay healthy for a sustained amount of time so that you're not being put back on the bench, and then you kind of get lost on the bench and then you don't come in again? That's the real question. So with any young prospect, does Phil Foden have talent? Obviously, the guy has amazing talent. The question is, can he do it over the course of time? Can it be consistent? However, you got to believe that whether it's for good reasons or not, there's a huge contingency of people out there that feel for some reason that England is going to win the Euro Cup. Maybe it could happen. It could happen, I guess. They did get 4th place in the last World Cup, which was remarkable. I didn't think that was going to happen. or that they're going to win the next World Cup or something like that. Will that happen? Probably not. I think the odds are against them. However, that is a consistent theme you're going to see in the market. So I think that Phil Foden, that's a guy he kind of represents to a great extent the future of English football, and a lot of people see that hope in him. So they're kind of anticipating something happening, and that anticipating in and of itself kind of drives up the market. And we know that it doesn't take much sales to drive up the hype on a player. It actually takes like 5 sales to double the price of a card, because there's such low supply out there that it just takes the slightest bit of hype to do that. So I think for me, I like Phil Foden. I enjoy watching him as a player. Do I think he'll be an iconic, transcendent player? I have no clue. But I think there's a market for him, and I think the market's going to grow, honestly.
Definitely. And you mentioned hype and hope. That's actually a great transition, because there is no hope and there is no hype like American soccer. And that brings us to Matthew Hope, which I probably mispronounced his name. We were talking before. We don't know if it's Hope, but we'll call him Hope for the sake of this podcast. Hat trick in the Bundesliga, Tops Now card coming out. I mean, I don't know about you guys.
Obviously,
I'll be picking up at least a couple.
Really?
Yeah, that's my guy.
Oh, Matthew.
I mean,
yeah,
I'm going to consider him a Barcelona Academy product too. He played at the Barcelona Academy in Arizona. That's a very, very loose connection there, but we can take credit for him.
Yeah, he's the first rookie or the first American to score a hat trick in the Bundesliga. The guy played first for Schalke under 19s. And he now played 5 games for Schalke's first team, and obviously scored a hat trick. So he's only been 5 games into the first team. I think that sums it up for me. Now, Schalke, people who follow the Bundesliga, Schalke 04, yeah, is not really having a great season. They only won 1 of their last 15 games. They scored 12 goals, which he scored 3 of.
Because they don't have McKennie. That's why. They don't have McKennie. That's it.
That's
the team is done.
They need more Americans.
They conceded 39 goals. So that's McKennie not being there.
Yeah, right.
Obviously. So now they have a new American to fill that hole. Like, if they concede goals, that's no worries, because we have an American scoring them. So if they can just score 1 more and they concede, they don't need McKennie. It's all Matthew. But yeah, it's I mean, I'm not surprised. I'm getting a bit tired of this Tops Now thing. It's like whenever someone does something like brief step on the pitch, that's enough for a Tops Now card with an RC logo. So I mean, I guess. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think?
What do you think the print run's going to be?
Less than Moukoko, but still substantial.
I don't think it's going to be a huge print run.
What does he have out there right now?
Nothing.
I
ran to eBay right after the game. At least I don't think so. So. What would he be in?
He's 5 games into the Bundesliga. Yeah, I don't think he has anything.
Nothing from
MLS.
So
if he doesn't have anything out there, and he's American, Tops Now product, I mean, how could that not blow up beyond all rational thought? How could that not be like that's 20, 30,000 cards? I can't see that happening, because if you think about, just consider the type of print runs that really started the game. Let's look at the living set, right? So in the first print runs, who had the largest print runs? Pulisic had a big, for the time. I mean, now it's like a drop in the water, but for the time, Pulisic had a huge print run. McKennie had a huge print run. Gio Reyna had a huge print run for their time. It was like never seen before print runs for that particular set. Even Alphonso Davies, who is Canadian, he had a huge print run. So I think there's something to say about just North Americans in general, or Americans and those Tops products, especially the Tops Now. I cannot see a scenario in which that card does not just blow up. I'm thinking, I don't know. You want to make a prediction? Let's do it. Bet. So I'm going to go with, no. Who has to go first? Or I'll go first. All right. So I'm going to go with at least, what was Moukoko's print run again?
What was it?
40?
Yeah, 38
40K.
Something.
Yeah,
so how about
around
this?
40K.
More or less than him?
Oh, I'll go less.
I'm gonna go. I think it'll be on par. I think 30 to 40 is feasible. I don't know. What do you think, Vincent?
Damn.
I think it's possible. Yeah,
I was about to say like 5,000.
5,000.
Yeah, I don't know. It's actually a good question. I don't think any of us know for sure.
No,
I'm
of course
not
not. I know.
sure how familiar everyone is with him. You know what I mean? Like it definitely
Sure,
caused a stir, but it's a little different because Pulisic and Reina, like there was a real
sure.
buzz when
Yeah,
their stuff like the I don't want to say the average American, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like the more casual American soccer fan obviously knew them.
sure.
I'm not sure casual American soccer fans know who he is right
No,
now.
I agree. I've never heard of him
I'll
before
I'll
this
I'll
situation.
stretch it. I'll stretch it to 9,500.
9,500. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll go 9,501. And I think I'm pretty safe there. So I think that here's the things that are working for him. Number one, he just scored a hat trick in the Bundesliga. That's a big deal. Number two is that he's American. Number three is if he doesn't have anything else printed up to this point, that's significant. And also, people like the feeling of, oh, I'm finding out something new. I think the thing that's working against him is that I think people like Vincent said. I think what Vincent shared is the sentiment for a lot of people in the collecting world right now, especially with soccer, that they're kind of burnt out on it, seeing one print after another. This Mokoku guy, and they're like, well, like they're probably anticipating this print run being high, so that might actually get him away from it. So I don't know. I think there's a prospect that's going to be very high, but I could
I
be wrong.
think I think Mukoko was an exception because he played for Dortmund. A lot of hype is building around Dortmund with
Sure.
Reina, Haaland. I mean, do you want a card from an American who scored 3 goals? I'm gonna give him that. I mean, that's awesome for him, and obviously being American, it helps. But the team is right now sitting at 17th, winning one game in 15. Like, who wants a card from an American that's going to drop to second Bundesliga if they don't like start winning? It's like it's a difference between dropping to the second Bundesliga and playing for Dortmund with Haaland, Sancho, and Reina, and Bellingham and all the other guys who are running around there. So I think that's gonna keep
But he
people from buying.
scored
I
three
mean,
goals. He scored 3 goals, man.
Well,
yeah,
Three.
and
I'll say on that note though, people are right. That's pretty much more than Josh Sargent has been able to do. So, and people are investing in Sargent and Weah. I mean, that's something I'd actually really like to get your opinion on, Danny. What do you think of them at this point as investments? Because when someone said that, it's like, yeah, man, that's right. That's actually kind of sad for Sargent's sake.
Yeah, so for me and my personal like investment strategy, so I'm investing in the market more so than the players, right? So I invest in the market and I think about the different facets of the soccer market. So you have different plays. You have the British play, you have the American play, and you have the overarching play, right? So the overarching play for me is investing in goats, legends. We got Messi, Ronaldo, someone people that maybe are a little bit undervalued but still have like a timeless legend to them. Lewandowski, uh, even some players that are not quite goats legends but are playing in that upper tier that are just acknowledged, like a lot of people last year at least would acknowledge Kevin De Bruyne as the guy in the Premier League, as the best player there. So I like players like that. That's for me investing in the market. As far as the goat situation goes, as far as the American situation goes, I'm anticipating that more and more Americans are going to be collecting. And that's a lot of my optimism with the soccer card market in general. But with that, I mean, you can't, I don't think you can anticipate the soccer card market expanding and yet not anticipate the American card market getting like specifically for American soccer players getting higher, like not getting higher. I think they come in hand. As you see the soccer card market grow, you're going to see the specifically American player soccer card market grow. So in that regard, I'm all about it. I'm not watching Josh Sargent play regularly. I mean, I don't think like there's just not there's only so many hours in the day. I'm not watching Timothy Weah play regularly. I do watch Pulisic quite a bit. I do watch Reina some because my son likes Dortmund and we watch Dortmund quite a bit. So, but
there you
but
go.
as far as the other guys go, I'll invest in the soccer card market. So I think it's a good investment. Just know that as quick as it can go up, it can go down.
I I think that's that's fair to say. As for me, from Europe, it's just hard to wrap my head around the American hype. You know how fast it goes. Like all it takes is 3 goals, and this Matthew, and we cannot even pronounce the last name. Has a Topps RC card that 10,000, 20,000 people maybe gonna order. It's like, how does
Well,
that
okay,
work?
put this in perspective. Let's take this in terms of basketball, right?
Oh, here we go.
Here we go again.
Ball. Do you like ball?
Um, I mean, I made a couple bucks on them yesterday on Star Stock,
Okay.
so now I do.
Bet.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, so ball. Let's say Bobo has a game. Let's say the whole soccer market was actually, instead of being for the soccer market, it was for basketball, and Pops now was like a big thing. Bobo, he doesn't have a card that exists. He drops 50 points. He drops 50 points. I'd say that's kind of the equivalent to a hat trick. Drops 50 points. What's going to happen?
Yeah.
I will tell you what's going to happen. People are going to go crazy. People are going to be like, Bobo, buying his stuff all over the place. Ridiculous pop counts. This is how we are, you know. We just love the hype, you know. That's how it goes.
I mean, it's tough. I would say it's tough because to keep it with the bull comparison I talked about before the season, I talked about the risks of investing in Garland and Keldon Johnson and these guys who, if you had invested in them, you would have done better on them than a lot of Luka, I'm pretty sure, at least with the percentages. So that's the tough thing. But I guess when I ask about Sargent and Weah, you're 100% right. And in that hypothetical world, you're right again. It's just kind of the question. It's the ever question of like, where's the bar going to be set? And that's going to be set, like you said, by how many people are coming in. So I see a scenario where, let's just say Weah is on the bench for the Americans at the 2022 World Cup, and people are like, you know, I need to invest. But I also see a scenario where it's like he's just too far down the ladder and his stuff is worthless.
At the end of the day, his last name is Weah, so that works well for him. So
yeah.
Honestly, it does. It kind of it gives a, you know, I think Giovanni Reyna, if he, let's say his dad. So I love Claudio Reyna, was one of my favorite American players of all time. I don't know if you followed him very much. Like, he was a boss during the World Cup and was going toe to toe with all these, like, United States were going against some significant teams, but the United States played super well, and a big part of that was Claudio Reyna. I know when I heard about Gio Reyna coming out, I was like, whoa, this is really cool, and it brought my attention to the matter. And the fact that Gio Reyna can play, that's great. But it does help a bit. So I think someone like Timothy Weah, I like that. You know, obviously you see his name and you kind of have that, whether he plays like him or not, that is a connection, I guess.
Yeah, that's good. And at the end of the day, you know, we can speculate all day, but we'll have to wait and see, especially with someone like Weah. I wish him nothing but the best. We'll have to see if he can stay healthy. But actually, that's we're talking about footballers accomplishing World Cups. That brings us to our first Q&A question from Simon Daughtry. Top criteria for a footballer's resume: World Cups, Champions League titles, goals, and assist career. What else would you guys add, and in what order is your priority of each criteria? So you don't have to be that specific and rank it and put a thesis out here, but just, what's important to you guys when talking about footballer's career?
All right, I'll go first because I think I have the most. A lot of people always put like the World Cup up there, Champions League, and Ballon d'Or. I would say World Cup, Champions League, and Ballon d'Or are probably the most important competitions or things to win in the soccer or the football world. Now, are we going to use the World Cup? I don't know, because Messi and Ronaldo have not won a World Cup. So how much does that come into account? Are we going to use the Ballon d'Or for an example? Well, the Ballon d'Or is an award awarded since 1956, but up until 1994, only European players could win the award. So Pele, playing for Santos, doesn't have a Ballon d'Or. So are we going to rank players on that? Then Champions League. Now, funny question. Do you guys know who won the most Champions League titles in history?
Real Madrid.
Yeah, but what guy? What player?
What
There's
guy?
one player who has the most.
I mean,
so I think that says a lot.
It's what's it, the goalkeeper, right? Well, I mean, wasn't? I mean, they've had a few. Yeah, which one? I don't know.
Well, that's what I mean. Are we going to rank players? Are we going to rank players on that? Like, I'm going to tell you guys, it's Paco Gento. He won 6 playing for Real Madrid from 1953 until 1971. So
I just got right now. Let's
he
go.
won more.
Bet.
He won more Champions Leagues than Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, that's just put things in perspective. Like a bunch of players won 4 titles, like Bale, Isco, Modric. A bunch of players won 3, like Raúl, Gerd Müller, Beckenbauer, Puskas, Johan Cruyff won 3. So are we going to rate players based on that? That would mean that an Isco or a Modric card has more weight to it because they won more Champions Leagues than Beckenbauer and Johan Cruyff. So are we going to do it on goals and assists? So what about defenders? Like Paolo Maldini is in the top 10 of most wins of Champions Leagues, but he only scored 36 goals in over 700 games because he was a defender. So it's very hard to like put a name to it. Like I would say Ballon d'Or is big, but then again, like what does it really say about a player? He was the best player that year. Like, yeah, sure. I would say that's a good one. But then a World Cup, like you don't choose where you get born. Like Haaland is the best example. Shevchenko for Ukraine, Lewandowski for Poland. Like they were bosses and they are bosses, but they're never gonna win a World Cup. So I think it's very hard to get a resume or like. I mean, there is so much players that get hyped for no reason. So what does it mean? What does it really mean? Like I would still say Ballon d'Or, Champions League, and World Cup. If you have a player that won 1 or more, that's already very good. But I don't think there is like one way to put it. Like I would say people gravitate towards goals and assists, I guess. So are we going to put more weight on goals and assists over Champions League wins? I don't know. Modric, like, sorry, I'm gonna finish on this one. Like Modric, I think he won 4 Champions League titles. He won a Ballon d'Or, and he's been scoring goals and giving assists for the longest period of time, and no one cares about Modric's cards. Like,
I think he's scoring.
I don't know how to answer.
So he's scoring. I think he's scored a lot of goals and assists, but he hasn't been scoring a lot of goals and assists maybe in the past year or so. And I think with the change in the soccer card market, we like what's in front of us right now. Sure. And that's what it comes down to. You know, if we were buying players, 6 years ago, the landscape would look, I mean, if the soccer market was as charged as it is now 6 years ago, the landscape would look completely different. We would be prioritizing different players. It would just be a different deal. So I don't know, for me, like the number one thing that I'll take home is going to be like cultural relevance. So, this box office factor. Who is box office? You got to figure with a lot of people, even people that are playing the card game, how much soccer do they actually watch? Are they actively, are they sitting down with a beer watching a soccer game, or are they just like checking out the stats and the scores? Maybe the reason why these goals and assists kind of push cards sometimes, and it does to an extent,
highlights,
because the highlights, man. So for me, like from an investing, and it all depends what type of investment too. Like a player that I invest in big time is Thomas Müller. But Thomas Müller is not a player that I'm planning on flipping like in the next 6 months. That's a player that I'm planning on holding on to because I feel like the big goal is going to be something else. But as far as the short term goes, I'm looking for someone who's culturally relevant, who's a box office player. So when I think of that, I think of like, and obviously it helps that he's one of the greatest soccer players of all time. Cristiano Ronaldo is the guy who I'm investing in big time right now. Cristiano Ronaldo is possibly the most recognizable person on the face of the planet. That's like a built-in market no matter what, in any regard. That's a market right there. He has the most followers on Instagram. He is super, I don't know if he's super beloved. He's beloved by a lot of people, but some people hate him, but he's beloved by a lot of people. So he's a player that I think that's a player that's culturally relevant. That's a player that I think his cards will sell. And that's a party. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo, he doesn't have a World Cup title. And I think there is some merit to that. It's like a lot of people, they like that prospect of, let's say, Mbappe versus Haaland. if I were to say who is your preference right now, who would you rather invest in? I'd say the soccer card community right now is split on one of those two players as far as what's the preferable investment. There's a lot of people that will say Haaland. There's a lot of people that say Mbappe. The thing that you like about Mbappe is that, how old is he now? He just turned 22, right? So
Yeah,
at
I
the
think
age
so.
of 22, that dude won a World Cup as one of their best players.
But so
That
did Lori. He was the goalkeeper.
Yep, that's true. But he's not that's the cultural relevance part, right? So he's not
Yep.
a young, exciting prospect. He's not a box office like Mbappe is. He doesn't have the same thing. It's like, if I were to say who is the most important person that won the World Cup for France in 2018, for me, it's N'Golo Kante. Kante he did the dirty work. That guy's running. I mean, I think like they've done statistics on it. He runs more than like any other player in the history of soccer. Always going around, does everything. However, Mbappe is the guy. Mbappe is the guy that the player. Yeah, so you're pointing at that. Mbappe is the guy that the players that the people like. Because he's the most culturally relevant right now. So I think, so going back to the Haaland thing, if Haaland gets injured today, what's going to happen to Haaland's? Let's say he has a bad injury, one after another, ACL injury, another one, and then he's not really doing much.
Don't put that out there.
Yeah, no, I know that will be knock on wood.
Don't I knocked on wood for you. We're good.
Yeah. Thank you. But if that happens, you're going to look back at this career and be like, man, this is a great talent, but it didn't really amount to much. And that's happened to a lot of players. Tons of hype, doesn't amount to something. At the end of the day, you can look at Mbappe and say, even if he has catastrophic injury, he's won a World Cup. I mean, and he made it to the Champions League final. And that's a lot more than you can say for some other guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely true. With that, I mean, I don't even want to discuss that particular scenario, but the thing people say that about Mbappe, I will say the one thing though, is if Mbappe's career ended today, I don't think that's enough for him to maintain hobby relevance, So there's a lot he definitely has a head start on almost every other prospect, but there's still a lot for him to do.
To the extent that he is now, like the iconic cards that he's producing right now to maintain that level, he would need a little something else.
Yeah. And the one other thing I wanted to say is, and you guys both touched on it, but there's no like formula, or you can't even put a list together. That's why I said don't do it, because, and once again, sorry, we're hijacking it, but NBA, you can compare things. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, man, but you like the NBA too, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But you can compare guys pretty easily. You take, Kobe at a certain age, they take his points per game versus LeBron. How many NBA championships does he have? And, there's bigger markets and you have certain people on your team, but for the most part, everyone kind of has an equal opportunity to put numbers up, to win championships. And it's the career paths are somewhat similar, but in soccer, like you guys said, they don't get to choose where they're born. And the World Cup is such a big part of a criteria. And you talked about Mbappe too. Okay, he was on that team and he certainly contributed, scoring a goal, but how much of that do we give to him? Like, how much credit does he get for that versus, I don't know, even someone like Ronaldo winning the Euros being, I'll just say it, a more important part of that team, but it's a Euros versus a World Cup. And then Mbappe, we'll just keep it on him. He won a League One title. That has to mean something. But how does that compare to, let's say he stays there for a while and he wins 10? How does that compare to one Premier League title or Serie A or anything like that? You can't really have a formula. So even once again, Holland, let's say they make a deep run in the Euros one year. I think that's a pretty big accomplishment, but you can't set a criteria of like this Holland Euro run equals third place in the World Cup for Mbappe, because of like, I agree with your cultural relevance point and everything. You just have to kind of look at it. And the tough thing is people are always going to argue because it's not as easy to compare with all the different leagues, all the different countries. It's tougher than almost any other sport.
I mean, I would say Norway reaching the semifinals of a Euros would be much more significant than England making the final. It's like, you have to put everything in perspective. I keep saying it, but it's just the way it is. I would still say the World Cup, the Ballon d'Or, and the Champions League, but just look at players individually. Like, how much did they contribute? Because Lori won the World Cup as well, but as a goalkeeper, so no one cares. But it's like, you cannot just, as you said, you cannot just put like a formula out there, like he has to win this, and this, and then it's a buy. It's like there's more to it. And then the other thing comes into play. You need to watch the games. Don't just watch highlights, because highlights don't show you what Busquets, Casemiro, Kante do on the field. Like, you need to watch the games to recognize and to understand how important they are for the team. And no one invests in Busquets, Casemiro, or Kante. But it's like, without those guys, attacking players don't have a chance to score as many goals, maybe, or they concede more goals. And then players like Messi don't win 5 league titles. It's like, yeah, it's hard. It's hard, I would say. But I just look at every player individually. I guess it's not really much of a help, but that's what I would say.
And I think what you're saying, you know, you're right. You know, do your research, find out for yourself, watch the games. But most likely, this next breed of investors, like investors that are coming into the sports card market, a lot of, especially the younger ones, they're not gonna look into depth on this situation. You're not gonna have a lot of these American people buying cards, like hardcore watching the games. It's very rare to find something like that. You know, most people that I know that watch games that are young, you know, they're doing something else as they're watching the game, and they're just putting very loose attention to what's happening. So I think, you know, yes, that is ideal, but in the same sense, you know, just keeping in touch with it, actually at that base level, kind of keeping your pulse on the culture behind it, those highlight reels, those sick things, you know, that happen. Like, for instance, remember the UCL final when Alphonso Davies pulled the amazing assist that he did, right, against Barcelona. What was so great about that was that it was a very much like it was a cool video bite. So you're seeing Alphonso Davies take out this Barcelona defender, then getting the amazing pass off. So that video was circulated a lot, and a lot of people, they're seeing that video, were like, "Oh my gosh, as you see that move, so what happens?" His card prices spike like crazy, and that was a catalyst for a lot of that movement that you saw on those prices. And it was just an assist, but it was a great video bite that you saw of it, and I think a lot of people kind of stuck on that. So and I agree totally. You know, stay informed, do the proper research, but also try to keep your pulse on even like the surface stuff. Like, obviously there's players that I really believe in, but there's also players that I don't necessarily believe in that I invest in, because I think that people will want to buy the card at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely that's a great point. That, you know, that's kind of, we can answer every Q&A question right here. If you keep your pulse on the market and you're aware of what's going on, and like, I really think, yes, look at the data and all that stuff, watch the games. It's obviously probably the most important, but I really think looking what's on ESPN highlights, what's on IG, what, you know, 433, what are they posting? That's almost just as important part of this stuff, because I see a bunch of guys on like Blowout and these forums, and they're making themselves martyrs, man. They're like, no, Draymond Green and Busquets are so underappreciated. I can't believe I'm going all in on Busquets. It's like, okay, well, the bad news is you're not going to make any money. So that's fine if you want to collect, and by all means, I do it all the time. I got a huge shipment from ComC today of like purely PC stuff. So I'm excited to look through that. But the most important thing is pay attention to the market, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. You know, the hype you mentioned, I always say it's changing stocks, it's changing Bitcoin, it's changing everything. The major hedge fund managers are having to take into account what is going on Reddit. Like, that's pretty insane. That kind of stuff is really moving the market. So I'm excited for soccer and soccer cards. We already see the market heating up, and you know, we'll see what happens in 2021. But either way, I'm really excited. But yeah, I think we're gonna end it there, guys. This was a long one, and we didn't get to every Q&A question, but we got through some really good stuff, and it was exciting. So Danny, thanks so much for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I bet, man. I enjoyed it. I love the content you guys are putting out. You guys are like the soccer card content goats, you know, one of the goats. So I appreciate you having me on. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Thanks
definitely,
coming,
man. Yeah, I appreciate it. We'll have to have you on again. This was really fun. But yeah, everyone who's watching, make sure to like and subscribe. This should be on its own channel, so definitely subscribe to that. I totally forgot. I think we have a giveaway for this video. So if you want, Yeah, but if you waited to this video to get in on the giveaway, then I have a little less sympathy. But if you do want to enter for the Davies or the Kevin De Bruyne, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. And we're going to keep the videos coming. Thanks again, guys.